Hello and welcome to An Evening with Bullshit. I'm Alyssa Pals, and with me today I have
Mac,
Ian, Nick,
Josh,
and Rachel.
So today we're talking about a pretty hot topic that goes on, which is violence in video games. A lot of people can think that this contributes to violence in real life, especially youth violence in particular. For instance, according to the BBC, one of the students who carried out the Columbine High School massacre in 1999 used a gun he called Arlene, which is allegedly after a character from the novel that inspired the computer game Doom. Also, according to New York Post, Adam Lanza, the shooter who committed the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre, prepared for the massacre on a computer game called School Shooting. In contrast to that, however, there are many that argue that violent video games do not contribute to violence in real life. Federal crime statistics suggest that serious violent crimes among youth have gone down since 1996, which is since violent video games sales have gone up. So what are your guys' thoughts on this? Do you think violence in video games causes real life violence, especially in youth, or what are your thoughts?
Well, Alyssa, I would point to the interview that Tom Brady, four-time Super Bowl champ, had recently in regards to some of the shootings that have happened. His quote is, "In no way have violent video games caused violence, especially shootings, in any way. And anyone that thinks so is completely ignorant." And Tom Brady, being as good as he is, I'm going to take his word for it.
How many times have you heard the correlation, though? That many people can't suspect a relation without any reason for thinking that. And there's no reason to think they're not a main cause. What would be the reason if it's not the main cause? I mean, so much crime has happened, and there's been so many school shootings recently. With a game called School Shooting out there, I mean, there has to be a correlation.
well, I recently read up on a study from Iowa State that correlated what they called mentally disturbed children, so those with ADHD, depression, and those with history of violence, and they tried to correlate how many violent video games they actually played, and there's actually no correlation between it.
So Rachel, you obviously disagree with this. You think that it is causing violence. For instance, I know there's a case that happened in Waukesha with two 12-year-old girls who stabbed a classmate about 19 times for the Slender Man, which it was a legend, but now it's become a computer game. So you think that this is definitely something we should be looking for?
Definitely. That legend turned into various video games. It spread all across the country, and then, of course, we see someone trying to sacrifice their friend to the Slender Man. Of course, it leads to violence.
So do any of you guys play video games or violent video games? If so, do you have a personal opinion? Like, do you think that after you play a video game like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty that you want to go out and mug some people? Or what are your thoughts? Anyone?
Well, I mean, I'll go. I'm a very frequent player of Grand Theft Auto, specifically Grand Theft Auto 5. And obviously everybody knows, oh, it's such a violent video game. But I'll play it, and in the game, I mean, I'll be honest, I'll run down and I'll mow down civilians. And I'll do whatever I want to do. But I'm of stable mind that I won't just go out and do that in real life. I mean, there's no way I could act. The game would make me want to do that.
Right. So I know there's some real life stuff that correlates with this, but not necessarily a killing or anything like that. Josh, I know you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I have some pretty interesting information here. Recently in the news, there was a Korean family, and they actually play Second Life, which is a virtual reality game, and they had a newborn infant baby. He actually ended up dying of malnutrition because they spent so much time dealing with their child in their virtual reality world. And to me, how can you neglect a fact like that? If you're going to play video games and become so obsessed with them that people are actually dying, whether, as a violent shooting or, something as real as you just being so obsessed that you're not paying attention to the reality around you.
Right. I mean, that could be contributed to Sims, too. I mean, I play Sims a lot, and I'll spend hours and hours. Thank God I'm not a parent. But, I mean, it could be happening in our backyard with Sims being so popular here in the United States. Ian, what do you think? Do you think children necessarily are attracted to this violent crime, or?
Oh, most definitely. I think it is very hard for children to distinguish between video games and reality. I mean, have you seen some of the graphics on these video games? Like, they're stunning. I would have a hard time telling between reality. This is just ridiculous. The question is, where does it stop? First is shooters, Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare, Battlefield, Halo. Then you go to Mario, you go to Frogger, you go to Tetris. Where is it going to stop? That's the question I have for you guys.
I mean, it'll come to a point, like going off what you said, Nick, that video games are a very crucial part in the way children learn. There have been studies that have shown that it helps with their hand-eye coordination, their depth perception, their social skills, and everything like that. Because, I mean, you go on games like what we used to play in middle school, Club Penguin, and stuff like that. You get on a server and you play with your friends in Minecraft. You're not doing violent things. You're hanging out with your friends and you're doing fun things. You're communicating with them, and you're just working on bettering yourself and not destroying the real world.
Well, going off of that, there's another young boy, and he actually was 15 years old. His parents decided, you're playing way too many video games. They actually forced him to stop. He ended up running away from home and jumping off of a tree and ended up killing himself because of it. So yeah, video games can maybe help in some situations, but if you're not monitoring that and how much you're playing, these video games are killing people.
Don't you think, though, that it can have a positive effect with, people that might have social anxiety? When they go online, they can chat with people and kind of get that social need that everyone needs instead of just having it in person. Don't you think that video games could be a positive thing for those people?
Sure, but it's where you draw the line. I mean, yeah, it could be positive, but with all these negative things out there, how are you going to, take one positive out of these actual deaths? I don't know. I just can't agree with it.
So going on that, so violent video games are obviously what people kind of go to after these mass murders, especially with these students or kids. So what about other violent media? We have violent movies, we have violent TV. So what are your thoughts on that? Why is it just video games that are getting blamed?
I would say that in video games, you can actually act out a murder. And that is the point of many games, is to act out the murder of someone else in the game. So you could go so far as to call them a murder simulator, depending on which game you're looking at. You could practice, obviously with the school shooting game, you could practice doing that from start to finish. Enter school, bring a gun, get your way into the kids. So
Yeah, according to that article, it did say that he went in and acted out the killing of students and teachers. So you think that it's more of an interactive type thing?
yeah, you
So
get your hands on a gun in the game, you figure out how to shoot people in the game. It just leads to you're learning how to do it. That's a way to learn.
Right, so then as violent video game sales have gone up, there has been a decrease in violent crime in the youth. So how would you guys kind of explain those numbers? Either argument, how would you guys explain that? If you do think that is committing crimes, that this is contributing to that, the sales have spiked, but yet the crime has gone down. Any thoughts on that?
I'd say it's clear that violent video games are actually, like you said, the statistics show that it's reduced it. It's clearly an outlet. Kids don't actually have to go out and act out these things that they're thinking. They get to express it in a safe manner, and clearly they're not going out and shooting up every school they see.
Right.
I disagree 100%. I just don't know how many school shootings we actually need to have before video games are completely banned.
I can drink too many glasses of water and die because of it, but you're not going to ban water from everyone in the United States now, are you?
Do you have kids?
I do not.
I'm a father of 7, and when it comes to my kids, their safety is paramount.
But aren't there other things you're worried about for their safety, like child-proofing things and making sure that they wear their helmet when they ride their bike? You're just going to take a video game away from them, a safe way that they can get their anger out and everything? So why would you take that away from them?
Why are your children angry? I feel like that would go back to parenting then. You're kind of, taking away from the subject. You're not really hitting the underlying values that he's talking about here.
Well, maybe he's just a terrible father. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Don't come after me. I mean, he brought it up, so
I'm a
just
single
saying.
dad, okay? I have a lot on my plate.
Well,
I don't
maybe,
think you even understand.
maybe you're a single dad for a reason.
Wow. Anyways, moving on. So do you think that video games will actually ever get banned? Do you think that'll ever happen with the media and all of the money that goes into it? Anyone?
My personal idol, Jack Thompson. He is trying his hardest. He's getting shot down at every angle, though. He's tried to ban games like Mortal Kombat and change the rating on the games. If you're aware, not all places that sell video games listen to the M rating, and they do not have any protocol in place to prevent children from purchasing these games, which I think is just awful. And there are young kids buying games like Fallout and shooting people, and it's leading to awful things, and I think we're corrupting our nation's youth.
That is a bold statement right there. So aren't there many studies, though, that have shown that this doesn't have any specific correlation with aggression?
I mean, I've read studies that have shown that video games, violent or not, actually help pro-social behaviors, even in those children with violent backgrounds and those that bully and other things like that. So, I mean, yeah, they're violent, but that doesn't mean it's going to cause them to do violent behaviors. I mean, it's going to make me
Alright.
want to help somebody.
Well, I think that's time we got to wrap up. So, Mac, would you like to explain your positioning on this a little bit quickly?
I tried to come from more of a more personal standpoint from my personal experience and using some empirical evidence that I've read and I've used for research papers and things that I've written.
And Ian?
I tried to use a lot of emotional appeals and
Those poor children.
The single father.
a bunch of fallacies. Yeah.
I used a slippery slope fallacy and a appeal to inappropriate authority.
All right, and Josh?
I used a couple red herrings, also empirical evidence I found on the internet.
And Rachel?
Uses ad populum, ignorance fallacies, some stuff I found. Jack Thompson is a real person on the internet, so.
All right, thank you for watching. This has been an Evening with Bullshit. I'm Melissa Pals, and see you next week.